We work so you can play Mark II. Oh yeah.
Matthew here from MiniWarGaming.com. And in this video we want to show you how to play Warmachine and Hordes. This is just going to be a really basic tutorial just to show you how the game is played and how much fun you can have with it. Now the reason we're doing this is because Warmachine, or Privateer Press, just came out with Warmachine MKII, which is basically their second edition Warmachine series. Hordes is still waiting to come out with their second edition, so they're not 100% compatible anymore like they used to be. But we're still going to show you a game between an army of Khador from Warmachine and an army of Legion of Everblight from Hordes. So as you can see, the book is quite awesome with its new graphics and artwork and everything. And it comes with all the rules that you need, and it even has some of the basic troops. So all you have to do is buy this one rule book and you'll have everything that you need to get started playing Warmachine MKII. We wanted to show you a quick mini game between a Warmachine army and a Hordes army so you can see the basic structure of the game and how it works. So you can see how easy it is to learn and just how overpowered and how fun it is when you come and you face your opponent with it. So first off, let me quickly introduce the two armies that we will be playing. As I said, we're going to be playing with part of my Khador army against a part of Mike's Horde's Legion of Everblight army. So over here, with the Khador army, what I've done is brought in three different types of units. The first thing is, the entire game focuses around a unit called the Warcaster. The Warcaster is the central unit to your entire army. She or he is the one that controls all of the warjacks. And if you lose your Warcaster, it typically means that you've lost the game, unless you have more than one in the army that you're bringing in. In a smaller game like this, you would only have one Warcaster, so it's very important that you keep them protected. The Warcaster controls units called warjacks. In the case of this is a Berserker. It's a heavy warjack in the Khador army. The Khador specializes in heavy warjacks. Most armies have heavy and light ones. Another type of unit is actually just the regular squads, or the regular units. In this case we have a Man-O-War Shock Trooper. These are regular people, although they're in very heavy armor in this case. And they can function on their own without the help of the Warcaster, although the Warcaster can still cast spells on them as well. And there are a couple different kinds of units. You have units that are groups of men or squads, and you also have units that are solos that operate on their own. Those are the four basic types of units. You have warjacks, your Warcaster, you have units, squads of units, and you also have solos. And those make up your Warmachine army. On the Horde side, we have just a small army here, although it's pretty equivalent in point size. This is a Warlock instead of the Warcaster, but it performs much of the same functions. It controls the War Beasts instead of the Warjacks. So we have two War Beasts here. We have a light War Beast and a heavy War Beast. In the case of Mike's army, he has a Carnivian. He also has a Rake, which is a light War Beast. Interesting thing about Hordes and Warmachine is they kind of act in opposites. As you'll find out, the Warcaster allocates its powers to its warjacks, whereas the Warlock has to take that power from the War Beast to keep them from going feral. And so that's what makes up the entire game. You have to really manage your resources properly so you can hit the hardest when you need to, and that you can defend yourself when you need to as well. But when it comes down to it, there's a basic rule that you have to understand when you're playing Warmachine and Hordes, and that is that you have to play, as they say at Privateer Press, like you've got a pair. Which means that you can't hold back and wait for them to approach you. You've got to just run out there and you got to fight, because everything has lots of special abilities. So if you wait for your opponent to use all of his, you're not going to stand a chance. So build your army and then just go headlong into battle and have a lot of fun. So let's show you the basic structure of how the game works. Now the first thing that happens after you've deployed, and typically your deployment is within 10 inches of the side of the board, you normally play on a 4x4 board. And the very first thing that happens is your Warcaster, in the case of Warmachine, gets all of his or her focus. Every single unit, the Warcaster, the Warjacks, and the squads of units have cards that you use to keep track of their health and their abilities. Now on the card there are a few different things. There's how much health it has, so you're able to keep track of how much damage the Warcaster has taken, and then there's all sorts of stats such as their speed, their strength, their melee attack, their range attack, and all sorts of other things. Right now the most important thing we want to look at for this commander is how many focus she has, which we can read right here. She has 6. I'm putting down these 6 tokens here to represent her focus. Now what she can do with these focus is she can allocate them to any warjacks under her control. And in this case I only have 1 warjack. And she can allocate up to 3 to that specific warjack. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give 1 to my Berserker, because I'm too far away to attack, and there's other things I can do with him, as I'll explain later. And also the Berserker has a special ability that if he gets too many focus, he'll actually explode. Once we have allocated focus, then we go through the activation phase. Basically the activation phase allows you to choose in any order you like units that you want to perform all of their actions. And you can't move on to another unit until the first unit has performed everything. So you don't move everybody, then shoot with everybody, then attack with everybody. Each individual unit completes all of their actions throughout their activation. For example, I'll do the Berserker's activation first. And what I'm going to have him do is run. Now running allows you to move twice your distance, or twice your speed. In the case of a Berserker, he can move 4 inches, so when he runs, he can move 8 inches. Now warjacks cannot run unless they have focus, so I'll actually have to spend this 1 focus that's on him for him to run. This represents the Warcaster commanding, or actually controlling, this warjack to do these motions. If you don't give any focus to the warjacks, they can only do basic moves and basic actions. So it's really important that you allocate what they need so that they can complete the tasks at hand. The second thing I'll do is I'll have my commander move as well. I'm not too concerned about where she goes at this point, simply because I don't want her to get ahead of everybody else, as if she dies, then that's basically the end of the game for me. So I'll keep her focused with her, just to remember. Now after you move, you're able to perform an action. That action could be shooting or casting spells or whatever it happens to be. So in her case, I have all sorts of spells I can choose from, but I'm not going to worry about casting any of them right now, simply because we're not close enough to really fight. But what I could do, if they were coming close enough and they had guns or ranged weapons, one of her abilities is to create a fog of war. It costs 3 of her focus, so I'll remove those 3. In this case, what it does is everything within her command, which is double her focus, so everything within 12 inches, is concealed by a fog, which basically makes it harder for the opponent to shoot at them. And so everything now, around 12 inches, is concealed by her fog. Every turn she can spend 1 focus to maintain this, or she can decide to just have it drop and not worry about it anymore. So it's a great thing for her to do as she advances, to keep everybody concealed, so it's harder for them to be shot at. With her last 2 focus, she's not going to spend them, and any focus left over on a Warcaster adds to her defense, which you'll see later how that comes into play. So if she gets attacked, which is unlikely because of how far away the opponent is, she'll have +2 defense because of the 2 leftover focus. Last, I'll activate my Khador unit, the Man of War Shock Troopers, and they are going to run as well. Now since they're a unit, in order to run they have to receive a command from a leader. In this case, the guy in the middle is their leader. So they're going to run 8 inches. Now they're going to cross through rough terrain. Basically every inch that you cross through rough terrain counts as 2 inches of movement. And so we'll just say that this counts as 2 inches to get across. So they normally can move 8, but because of the rough terrain they're only going to be able to move 7. So they'll be able to move up 7 inches. And they have to move as a squad and stay together. And so that concludes the movement of the side of the Warmachine Khador army.